What's up everyone, welcome to your first C++ tutorial, and in these tutorials I'm going to be teaching you how to program the language C++. Now I'm going to assume that you guys have no programming experience, so I'm going to start with the very basics. And the first thing that you need to get started is something called a compiler. And to do that, go into Google. I have Firefox open, and type in dev C++. Then search it with Google, and the first thing that you'll find, the first result, is called Bloodshed Software. So click on that, and then go to the download page and click download. Now click on the dev C++ link right at the top, and this will give you a page where you can go to the download page. Click go to the download page, and then from here you can download, as you can see, all of your downloads for a compiler. And you're going to want to click the first one, most likely, download from SourceForge, and what this is going to do is give you a compiler for C++. Now what a compiler is pretty much a program that lets you type in C++ code and run it on your computer. So I'll talk more about compilers later, but once you download that, I'm not going to click that because it's going to try to download my computer and I already have it. But you can X out of that, and once you finish downloading it, you can go to Start, All Programs, Bloodshed, and click on Dev C++. Did I click on it? Here we go. Now, I guess I can say what a compiler is. This will give you this. Just click X. Is it allows you to run code to a specific piece, to a specific application. Because C++ is a language that you can use on either your computer or a cell phone or a traffic light or anything like that. And instead of writing new code every time you wanted to type it to your computer and you wanted to use a new code for a traffic light, if you're programming a traffic light, you only have to write one code and the compiler changes all of it for you. So that's a little background about a compiler. You didn't really need to know that, but anyways, once you have dev C++ open, all you need to click is File, New, Source File. And once you have this, we're ready to begin working on C++. So, I hope you enjoyed your first tutorial. I hope your download goes well. So, stay tuned for the next of my tutorials, and we're actually be getting into some code. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks. What's up guys, welcome to my second C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be actually writing our first application with you guys. And the first thing we're going to want to do, if you don't already have it open, is open your dev C++ compiler. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then watch my last tutorial and I'll show you how to get it. And once you open it, go ahead and click File, New, Source File. And I already have one open, so I don't need to open one. And then you get something that'll pop up like this. And the first thing I like to do is go ahead and click Save As, and save a new CPP file. You can either type new.cpp or just type new and click CPP from the drop down list. It should be on there by default. But once you do that, go ahead and click Save, and you won't get that. It's just saying that because I already have a file. And once you have that, you're gonna have a tab right here that says New CPP, and this shows that you're working in that right file. So now that you got your file open, let's go ahead and start making our first application. The first thing that we're gonna want to do is actually include a file in C++ that's going to help our compiler. And to do this, we're going to want to use the pound sign and type include less than sign and type IO stream. IO stream. Then use your greater than sign. Then go to the next line. Now, this is one of the things that you don't really have to know what it does in C++. You just gotta remember to put it in there every time. But just in case you're curious, it's a preprocessor directive, and what it does is just pretty much process a source file before it compiles. So if you don't know what that means, then that's fine. You don't really need to know anything about that. But here is what you do actually need to know. C++ is made up of all these things called functions, and that's what we're going to be making. Every single C++ program you make, including this one we're going to be making today, is made up of functions. And functions have two parts. The first part is kind of like the title, and it's called the function header. So let's create that right now. So type in the letters int, and this means that we're going to be working with an integer, and then type in main and then 2 empty parentheses. This is pretty much the title of our function. Our function's name is main, and it's an integer function. On the next line, open with your curly brace, and on the next line put an end in curly brace. And anything you type in between these curly braces are going to be statements. Now, this piece of the function right now is called the body, and anything you type in are kind of like instructions for the function. In that sense, I mean, here's the title, but what do we want the function to do? Well, that's what we're going to be typing right here in something called statements. So again, to recap, we have a function right here. It's called the header, and the statements are the instructions for the function. And every statement ends with a semicolon. But before we get all to telling our function what to do, I'm going to have you guys add one more thing, kind of like this, that you don't really need to know what it does, but you need to put it in. And that is called using, and then type in the word namespace, std, then add a semicolon. In case you guys are curious again what this does, it pretty much tells C++ to use all the basic standard stuff that C++ uses. So now that we have that as our first rule in our function, let's go ahead and make some fun stuff. Or at least it'll be fun to me. The first thing that we want to do is type cout, and this is just basic output on the screen. And then we're going to add something, 2 less signs. That's called the insertion operator. So now we're telling C++, alright, we want you to output on the screen something, but what? Well, let's output, first make an open quotation mark, and I'm going to type, hey now, brown cow, and then anything you type in your quotation marks is going to be outputted on the screen. And again, remember, like I said, this is called a statement, and every statement you have to end with a semicolon. That's telling C++, alright, we gave you an instruction, now do it. So again, to recap, we got this string of text that's inside quotation marks. Our 2 less signs are called our insertion operator, and we want you to output this on the screen. And it's just going to read just like you're typing an email or reading a letter, nothing fancy, just plain text on the screen. The next thing I want to do is show you guys how to make a new line. To do that, type cout, output on the screen, and type end L. That's L as in line, not a 1. Then put your semicolon. So now we have hey now brown cow in our program, and on our new line, let's make something else. Again, cout, you guys are going to get good at outputting on the screen, at least. Then remember, quotation marks, say, don't jump that fence. Hey now brown cow, don't jump that fence. end it with your quotation marks, then insert another insertion operator and type in end L. That's going to end the other line. So again, type in all of this, and what this is going to do, type hey now brown cow, go to a new line, and on that new line we want to output don't jump that fence, and then we're just going to go to a new line for fun. So now we have a useful function right here, but before we execute this we're going to need to do a couple things. The first thing that we want to do is system, and then in our quotation marks we want to type the word pause. And I'll actually, if I remember, show you guys why this is useful. What this does is allows you to stop and look at our function instead of just running it. I'll run it without this and show you guys what it does. And the next thing you're going to want to do is type return 0. And what this does is pretty much end the main function. Since C++ is going to run through this, go, 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 but it's not going to know where to end. Right here we're just telling, alright, return 0. Pretty much, alright, C++, you did your job, good job, we're going to end you now. So once you got this all typed, go up here and click save, or you go to file, save, either one. And to run it, go up execute and click compile and run. What this is going to do, as you can see, check for errors and run your program. As you can see, if this box comes up, then we got no errors. And as you can see, it says hey now brown cow, and on our new line, don't jump that fence. And as you can see, let's just click out of that. If you don't insert that system pause, what it's going to do when you execute, compile, and run is it's just going to run your program, and I don't know if you could see it on YouTube, but it just flashed real quick and it didn't give you time to stop and actually look at the program. So you're going to have to make sure that you have that system pause in there. So study this, and again to recap, we have a function named main. That's called the header, function header. This is called the function body, and all these little things are called statements that give instructions, tell the function what to do. So study this. This is a real basic C++ tutorial, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, and just wait, and after some of these tutorials we'll be an expert C++ programmer in no time. And remember, if you like my tutorials, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks. What's up everyone, welcome to my third C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over declaration statements and variables. Now what a variable is, if you've never programmed before, is it is just a placeholder for something else. So as you can see, we have our old statements from tutorial 2 here, so let's go ahead and delete all these C out ones. So now that we're just using the namespace, the system, and the return. So let's go ahead, and the first thing we need to do when we use a variable is declare that variable. And this tells C++ what kind of variable we're using, and in this case we want to use a number or integer, so we put int. And then we need a name for our variable, and I'm going to name it my number. So again, we're using an integer variable, and it's going to be called my number. And since this is a statement, you need to end it with a semicolon. The next thing you want to do is give a value to my number. We told C++ that we're going to be using a variable called my number, but now it doesn't have a value. So to do this, it's really easy. Just type in your variable, which is my number, and set it equal to any number you want. I'll set it equal to 20 because 20 is my favorite number. And next, let's tighten this up a little bit. So the next thing we want to do is output this variable on the screen, and let me show you what this looks like. Let me just output a basic output. My number is in, oops, forgot my semicolon, and on the next line I'll put the variable my number. And let me just show you guys one thing that you may not have noticed. Anytime you're working with a string of text, which is just letters or a sentence, they need to be in quotation marks. But anytime you use a variable such as my number, which has the value of 20, it doesn't need to be in quotation marks. If you put quotation marks around it like this, it would read my number is my number. But we don't want that. We want to read my number is, and it will have the value of 20. So let's save this, compile and run, checking for errors, and as you can see it says my number is 20. Now change that, and as you can see, if we want to change that, we don't need to change it down here. All we need to do is change it up there, say to 54, and save it, execute, compile and run. And as you can see, now it says my number is 54. So this is one of the ways where you could type a bunch of code, and if you had this variable used say 100 times, instead of going through it one by one by one by one and changing every number, you can just make a variable, change it one time at the top, and it will change it for every instance. And this is really useful when you build large applications and you need to use the same variable many times. So next time, in my next tutorial, I'm going to be talking a little more about more variables. So I hope you learned something right now. So study this, learn your basics in variables, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks. What's up everyone, welcome to my 4th C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to change the value of a variable. As you can see in our last tutorial, hopefully you're just going through tutorials one by one. In tutorial 3 I showed you how to output a number by calling it from our variable. So now if we were output on the screen, it would just read my number is 54. But let's say we wanted to type the code further, and we wanted to change this variable. Let me first just make a new line so it's easier to see. Again, end L for end line. Now we have a new line, and starting on a new line. So now let's say we were going through our program and we wanted to make a change to the variable my number. To do this, it's very simple. Just type your variable again, and you can either set it equal to a new number, 32, and what this would do is if you do this, let me copy all this, and let me show you guys what this means. Since C++ reads code from top to bottom, here's what it's going to do. First we got a variable number 54, so it's going to echo that number 54, and then it's going to spit all that out, and on the next line it's going to say, alright, now we have a variable that's 32, so now the variable is 32. So let's see what it does when it does that. I'll just compile it real quick. As you can see, it's 54 first and 32 second, even though that we have the exact same variable my number. Since C++ runs from top to bottom, we can edit that and it'll read it just like it's getting a new variable, even though it's named the same thing. So watch out for this when you're writing your code. And one other cool little thing you can do is actually make basic math functions. So say in our second one we wanted to do my number equals 32 plus 42. So let's compile and run this, and as you see, 32 plus 42 equals 74. And even more so, what else we can do is add variables together. So let's say we wanted to add my number to 42. Well, since right now C++ already knows that this is an integer, instead of trying to add letters to numbers and getting an error, C++ is automatically going to put in the number 54 for this, since it knows that my number isn't actually the word my number, it's actually the value 54. So what it's going to do is say, alright, in this one we have the value 54, so spit it out. But in this one, we want to take a variable and add 54, which is this variable, to 42, and that's going to become the new variable from here on out. So let's go ahead, execute, compile, and run. As you can see, 54 plus 32 is 96, or 42, sorry about that. So now, as you can see, 54, 96. And just to recap one last time, to make this stick in your head about what's going on, we declared a variable by first declaring what type of variable it is, and then we named it. As you can see, we gave the variable the value 54 and output it on the screen. Now we told C++, alright, now we want the variable equal to the old variable plus 42, which was 96. Now when I output it on the screen, it says, alright, the new variable is 96. So what I'm trying to explain here is, even though you declare a variable once, the values can change. And this may seem confusing, but it's actually one of the most useful things that you can use or learn in programming. And we'll be working with this a lot later. So study this, and I hope you learn how to modify variables and how to give them a new value, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like. Thanks. What's up everyone, welcome to your 5th C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use the cin. Now as you can see in our last tutorial we used the cout, and let's get rid of all of this. And let me tell you guys how to use the cin. Which this is going to do is let you assign the computer a variable. As you can see, if I redone that, last time we told the computer what we wanted the variable to equal. But what if we want the user to tell us what the variable can equal? So again, let's delete that again. And the first thing that we need is a variable. And let's get a new variable. It's going to be an integer variable, and I'm going to name it let's name it Greg's for Greg's number. So now we told C++ we want to make a variable that's integer called Greg's num. First, let's ask the user a question by saying cout. Say, let's say, how many do you want? Say we were making a like shopping cart or something, and remember, enclose that in quotation marks. Move this so you can see it, and end all statements with a semicolon. Actually, I'm just going to put that on the same line so I don't have to do it again. Now, so our program is going to read first now, how many do you want? And that's it. Next, we're going to make the user give the variable. And to do this, we put cin and put the two opposite greater than signs. And then after that, we put Greg's num. As you can see, we already have a variable named Greg's num. Now, when I ask the question, how many do you want? Whatever number the user types is going to be assigned to the variable Greg's num. That's the same as putting Greg's num equal to 34 or 343. But instead, whatever the user types now is going to be assigned to that variable. Now let's just do a basic thing to show you guys what's actually going on here. Let's make another cout function, and let's just see your new number is, and on the next line all we want to do is what do we actually want to do to the number? Say Greg's num equals Greg's num plus 20, because it's my favorite number. Now, I'm sorry that I use 20 in all the tutorials, but it's my favorite number, so just deal with it. Now, what we have now, to recap, it's going to ask how many do you want, and whatever number we type into the program, it's going to add 20 to that number, and then it's going to say your new number is, and again, this doesn't output anything, we just change variable, and then the next sentence we want to output it. We'll say your new number is, and then we'll put we'll just output Greg's num, and this should be good to go. I would think so. So let's just make let's just end that line, and let's see what we got. Save it, execute, compile and run. Hope I don't have any errors. Don't look like I do. And here's our program. It says how many do you want, and I'm going to type 6. Now press enter, and it says your new number is 26. So look at this, how many do you want? 6. Your new number is 26. X out of this, and let's review this one last time so it'll stick in your head. We made an integer called Greg's num, and then we asked the question, how many do you want? This is just basic text, it doesn't have any programming meaning. Next, whatever number we typed in, we gave the value of Greg's num, and then we added 20 to that value and outputted the new variable. So this is how you can use the cin function to give data and assign a variable to whatever the user says, instead of just making your own. So this is one quick way that you can interact with the user using the cin. So make sure to look at this and study this and get very familiar with this. And in the next tutorial, we're probably going to be talking about functions. So make sure to subscribe to my channel, and hope you enjoyed my video. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 6th C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial, we're going to be going over functions, just the basics of functions. And since every program in C++ is going to be made of these functions, I thought it was kind of an important topic to go over. Now, the first programming thing that we're going to want to do here is include some basic functions that are built right into C++, and these are going to be some basic math functions. So right by your include IOStream, we're going to want to include another library, and it's called the CMath library. So type include and then type in CMath, just like that. Now that we included the CMath library, we can use all the built-in math functions that C++ has to offer. So let's go in our function body and give our function main some instructions. The first thing that we're going to want to do is declare our first variable. And to do this, we're going to want to use the variable type double. Double, just like 2. And then we're going to want to name our first variable. We'll just name it num1 to make it easy. Now what double is pretty much just a real number, just C++ uses the term double. I don't know why, but they do, and that just means real number. So now that we have that, let's just output a basic task on the screen. We're going to output pick your number, and let's just end that line so it goes to a new line. As you can see, I have pick your number end line. So right now all we have is the text pick your number, and we're moving to a new line. Now we're going to want to assign a value to number 1, variable number 1. So to do this, use the cin. Now whatever number the user types in, it's going to be assigned to the variable num1. So if they type in 12, num1 is going to have the value of 12. So again, type in 82, so on and so on. The next thing we want to do is get a new variable. So first we have to declare double num2. I'll just make these easy for you. But now num1 has a value, but num2 doesn't. So we're going to say, alright, num2 is going to be equal to the square root of the variable number 1. So as you can see, we now have made a basic function, the square root. And as you can see, we don't need to type any extra code or tell C++ how to get the square root. It already knows automatically. And this is one of the many basic math functions that C++ has in its CMath library. So this is a way where you can make basic calculations without having to type a whole bunch of code. So now we have the variable num1, which is going to be assigned whatever value we tell it, and num2 is going to take the square root of num1, and that's the value that's going to be in the variable number 2. And lastly, let's just output on our screen to see our results. So cout equals, let's just type the square root of num1, and move this over so you can see the square root of the variable number 1 is num2. Now just make sure to end the line right there. And as you can see, I can use these two less than signs to join all of these strings together, and I don't need to put it on every new line. And that's another thing that can save you time when you're just outputting basic text on the screen. So let me save this, compile and run it. Hopefully I don't have any errors. And as you can see, it says pick your number, and let's pick 81. Now press enter, and it says the square root of 81 is 9. And again, just to recap once more, for the very first thing you can't forget to use is the CMath, because this allows you to use all these basic math functions. Declared our first variable, allowed the user to say what that variable's value was. Then we took that and made the square root of it the variable number 2, and that's how we got our basic function. So now study this, learn all of your basic functions, and get familiar with this, and I hope to see you in my next tutorial. Thanks for watching, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. What's up guys, welcome to your 7th C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial I'm going to be talking to you guys about arguments and functions. Now what those are is what's inside the parentheses. So example, for last time we had square root and we had a number like 6.34. Whatever's inside these parentheses or parameters is called the argument. Now as you see, square root only takes one argument, but some math functions take more than one and some take none at all. So that's what we're going to be going over today, and I want to help you understand how to use functions that require more than one or none at all. So we have our basics right here, and inside our function body, let's type a couple statements. The first thing that we want to do is declare our first variable. So let's make a variable called num1, and it's going to be a real number, so let's write double. And let's use the power of function. So we put num1 equals power. Remember last time we used square root? This time we're going to use the power, and that's POW, that's built right in. And as you can see right now, when you're using power, you always have two numbers such as 6 to the power of 8 or 2 to the power of 4. Right now, let's do 2 to the power of 4. And to do this, put 2.0, comma 4.0. And what this does is automatically assign 2 to the power of 4. It's a function built right in. And how you separate functions with more than one argument is with a comma. So again, a comma separates arguments that have more than one, and again, if it had just one, you would just type it in plain like that. But since this one has two, I'm going to separate that with a comma. Now let's output it on the screen. Remember, cout, and let's just type num1, and actually let's begin a new line. So as you can see, we declared a variable, we set that variable equal to the power of 2 to the 4th, which should be 16, I believe, and then we just outputted it right on the screen. So let's save that, compile and run, and as you can see, we have 16. And that's how you use a math function with more than one argument. But let's say there's a math function with no arguments, such as the function random number. And to do that, just type in the word rand, and this will provide a random number to our user. And as you can see, you don't need to type in a number or anything like that, because our CMath library is gonna make a random number right for us. So let's execute, compile and run. Hopefully I don't have any errors. And our random number it generated this time is 41. And that's just a random number. It didn't come from anywhere but space. So as you can see, some built-in math functions have 1, such as square root, 2, such as power, and or none at all, such as random numbers. So I hope you can understand arguments and functions, and remember, inside the parentheses are called parameters. They just call it parameters instead of parentheses because they want to sound cool. So I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope you learned something about functions. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. Thanks for watching. Bye. What's up everyone? Welcome to my 8th C++ tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be talking about how to make your own user-defined functions. Now as you can see in this first function we have here, all we have is a basic function that we need in every program, every C++ program, but what if we want to make our own function? Well, that's what I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do today, and it's really easy and one of the most useful things that we can learn, so pay attention and I'll teach you. The first thing that we want to do when making our own function is provide a function prototype. And what this does is pretty much describe the C++ that it's going to be saying, hey, we're going to be making our own function. So first you type a void and then type the name of your function. I'm going to name mine my fun, and then after that describe what kind of function it is. And mine is an integer function, so that's what I'm going to put. So again, all this does is tell C++, alright, we're going to be making a function sooner or later, and it's going to be called myFun. And typically whenever you put these in, they go above the int main. It goes above your main function just so C++ knows just what common practice. Now as you can see, here is one function that we've been working on, but we want to create a whole another one of these. So let's press enter a couple times below that and let's get to work. The first thing we want to do is define the function and pretty much make the function. So type void myFun, because this is the name of our function. Then in our parentheses we want to type int x. And what this says is we're going to, in our function, in the body of our function like this, we're going to have one variable and it's going to be called x, and it's going to be an integer variable. So whenever we make this function, watch out for a variable, know that we're going to be using it, and know that it's going to be named x. So now that we gave C++ our instructions, tell it what to prepare for, let's start making this function. So in my curly braces, the first thing we're going to want to do, as with most of our function, is use naming using namespace std, and it's just going to say follow the standard rules. And the next thing we're going to want to do is actually build our function. And all this function is going to do, you can do yours however you like. I'm just going to make mine output on the screen. My favorite number is, let me move this over so you can see it a little bit. Then I'm going to put x, x. And why did I put x? Because that's the variable I said it was going to use. And then I'm just going to end the line. So this is one of the smallest, easiest functions you'll ever see in your entire C++ life. What this does is take a variable and say, my favorite number is x. But what exactly is the value of x? Well, we didn't tell C++ what it is yet, so that's what we're going to do now. What we're going to do now is actually do something called call our function. And to do this, type in your function name, myfun, and in the parentheses or parameters, type in whatever value you want x to be. In this example, I'm going to type 45. So now, what this is saying is, alright, let's run this function. Use namespace, myfun, but it's going to say, alright, what is myfun? Well, when you get to this line, C++, right, my favorite number is whatever's in the parentheses, 45, then end the line. And then you can continue with the rest of your code. So we got this function, we're going to run this using namespace, do the myfun function, whatever that is, then you continue with the rest of your code. So let's go ahead and save this, compile and run. Hopefully I don't have any errors. Oops, I do. Hold on one second while I fix this. Alright, here's my error. I accidentally had a semicolon before the function name, so let's just go ahead and delete that and save it. And just to tell you guys, just to show you guys if you're using this with errors, it says if you compile and you have errors, it'll show right down here. So it said expected unqualified semicolon before the token, and that's what this is. So you don't need a semicolon after your function's name. I just put that because of habit. So let's save this, compile and run. I won't have any errors now. Now it says my favorite number is 45. Press any key to continue. And again, what it did was run myfun. My favorite number is, and then it looked right here for x. And another thing you can do, if you don't want to just tell C++ what your number is, you can declare a variable. Let's name it year num, and then we can write, if we want to enter our own input, your num, and then run the function, my function, with the your num. Make sure I have all my semicolons in. And now what we do is declare our own variable that's an integer. We're going to say, alright, ask us for our favorite number, and then once we tell you, we want you to run my function and say my favorite number is x, and x is going to be whatever your number is. So let's save this and execute, compile and run. And let's just type in 25, and now it says my favorite number is 25. And that's one way you can get input from the user to use their values or variables in a function. So study this tutorials, and those are two ways that you can use user-defined functions, either by entering your own input or getting input from the user. And remember to add your semicolons and not after when you're defining the function. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorials, and remember to subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Bye. What's up, everyone? Welcome to your 9th C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use a function that returns a value. So first of all, let's clean up our old tutorial. We'll get rid of that function, get rid of this stuff that we don't need, and get rid of this old function. So all we have is the basics. Now the first thing that we're going to want to do is type in our function prototype. And to do that, type what kind of function it's going to be. Name your function. I'm going to name mine dog years, because what we're going to be doing is converting dog years to people years. And then type in what kind of variable you're going to use in it. So I'm going to be making an integer function that returns an integer. Remember, last time it was void because we didn't return anything. This time we're going to return an integer. Our name of our function is dog years, and it's going to have an integer variable in it. So once you get that, the next thing we're going to want to do is make our function make our function. To do that, first you got to make your function header, and all you need to do that is just pretty much copy what you put for your function prototype. But in your parameters here, you're going to want to type actually what the variable is, and my variable is just going to be called dog. Now let's build our function. This is the function title pretty much. Now let's type some instructions for it. In your curly braces, type in what we're going to want the function to do. And anytime you're using a return value, you type in the word return, since we want to be getting a value out of it. And since you convert dog years to people years by timesing it by 7, actually I think that's what you do, I'm going to type 7 times, and the symbol for times is that little star above the 9 on the keypad, or above the 8 on your regular type keyboard, and 7 times dog. So what this is going to do is whenever it has a variable, it's going to take that and times it by 7 and return our number. So say we typed in 7 for the variable, it's going to times that by 7 and it's going to spit out 49. So now let's put this to work. In our main function, let's use this function. Let me give you some space so you can see what's new and what's old. The first thing we want to do is make a new variable called years, and this is going to become the input that the user is going to make. So since it's an integer, put int years, and let's just make output so the user knows what's going on. Cout for output, and let's just put enter your dog's age. Semicolon to end it, and let me just make a space right there. And in our next line, we'll have a space so the user can input the age. Type cin for input, and then type in years. And what this does, whatever number the user enters, it's going to assign that value to years. So actually, let me just type in end line right there, just so it looks neater. You know, this is optional, but it's just going to make it look neater. So after that, what we're going to want to do here is use our function. So let's make another variable called integer people years. Since we're going to be using this to output our final product, remember this is a brand new variable that we're just making right now. People years equals the function dog years times whatever the user inputted. So here is the one thing that you want to pay close attention to. What we're doing here is taking the number of years that the user inputs right here and using it in our function dog years right here. So say whatever they enter, say they enter a 1, it's going to take that 1 and times it by 7 and output it in whatever that number is. It's now going to hold the value of people years. So now let's output our final product. Type in cout for output, and let's just type your dog is, leave a space, let me move this over, and type in people years. And what this will do, finally we'll write your dog is and then give whatever number that this calculated. So let's go ahead and save this, compile and run. Hopefully I don't have any errors. Uh-oh. Good, I don't. Alright, enter your dog's age. Let's say my dog is 13. Press enter, and it says your dog is 91. And there you have it. What it did, again, times 13 by 7. Took that 13 times by 7 with the user input, and finally outputted your dog is and gave the product of our function. So that's how you can use a C++ function to return a value, and that's very useful in many programs. So study this, it's very important. Study how you can get user input and how to use the functions to make a return function. And thanks for watching, and if you like my videos, subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. What's up everyone, and welcome to your 10th C++ tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make arrays. Now what an array is pretty much a variable that can hold a bunch of different values in it. Now it's a little different than a variable in how you write it and how you store the information, but it's actually quite simple to make and very useful. So let's go ahead and as you can see, we just have all our basics, our to includes in our main function right here. And the first thing we want to do is create the array, and we need 3 things to create the array. The first thing we need to write is what kind of type it is, and I'm going to make just a basic array using numbers, so I'm going to use the int type. And the second one is you have to name your array just like you do a variable, and I'm going to name mine ages because we're going to be talking about ages right now. Now I know this looks a lot like a basic variable right now, but the third thing that we have to do is in square brackets, not your curly ones, your square ones, you have to write how many elements are going to be in your array. And I'm going to have 3 elements, so write the number 3 right after the name of your array. Now, right after this, we begin making the elements of our array. Now make sure that you have 3 and 3 only. And I'm going to start making the first one, and it's really simple to do. All you have to do is write the name of your array, which is ages, and as you can see, my first element does not begin with a 1. It begins with a 0 because in C++ when you're counting, everything starts with 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're actually going to go 0, 1, 2, and those are going to be the 3 elements. I know it's real confusing, but that's the way C++ made it. So I'm going to put the age of the first person is 21, because I'm 21. And then end your semicolon, and now put ages, and the second one has the 1 in the square brackets, and I'm going to put 19 because I know a guy who's 19. And in my third one, which is actually going to be 2, I'm going to put 9 because my sister is 9. So now these work just like any old variables in the sense that you can perform math functions to them or anything else. But how do you actually write the variable? And that's even simpler than making it. All you have to do is write it like it's a basic variable, but instead of just writing the name, you write which element of the array it is. So such as 1. In this variable right here, ages 1 is going to have the value 19. So if you do ages 1 plus ages 0, and we save this, it's going to put 19 plus 21. So let's save this, compile and run. Hopefully I don't have any errors anywhere. Forgot any semicolons or anything. Good, I don't. Now as you see, it goes 40, and that's exactly what we wanted. And as you can see, 19, which has this value, and 0 adds up to 40. And that's how you can store multiple values in the same variable, if you will, which is actually called an array. And this is very useful when you're trying to build a database or something like that. When you have a bunch of like variables, but you just want to change one little thing about them. Like you have a bunch of ages or a bunch of names or anything like that. And this is going to come into use a lot later. So study this. It's one of the most useful and basic things that you'll be seeing a lot of later. And I hope you enjoyed my tutorial, and make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like my videos. Thanks for watching. What's up guys, welcome to my, 11th tutorial in C++. And this time it's going to be a real quick tutorial, and I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make arrays a lot easier and a lot faster. Now hopefully you watched my last tutorial and you're just watching this one right after it. And as you can see, the first thing we did was create our array right here, and then we assigned a value to each of the elements individually, 0, 1, 2. But there's a lot easier way to do this. So let's get rid of all of this actually, and let's do it all at the same time. The first thing we have to do is create our array just as before. So let's put int ages, and then of course there are going to be 3 elements in it as usual. But this time, instead of just ending it, we're gonna create it and initialize it all at the same time, and we're gonna assign all our values. So instead of typing ages 0 equals, all we have to do is in curly brackets or write 3 numbers, 21, 19, and 9, just like we did before, and end it with a semicolon. And this is the exact same thing as putting ages 0 equal 21, ages 1 equals 19, ages 2 equals 9. Right here, C++ knows automatically to assign the values ages 0, since this is the first one, and remember C++ counts 0, 1, 2 instead of 1, 2, 3. That ages 0 is going to be the first one, ages 1 is going to be the second one, and unlike before, you don't have to list them individually, ages 0 equals 19, ages 1 equals 22, or whatever. So now, of course, just to prove you guys that this works and I'm not actually lying to you, let's output the ages 1, which is actually the second one, 19, plus ages 0, which is 21. So let me just save this, execute, compile, and run. And as you can see, we have 40 again, just like we wanted. So this is a lot faster and easier way of being able to assign your values to your array. And it's a lot quicker and it's a lot easier, like I said. So study this and it'll give you another option. The only down point is sometimes when you have real long ones, it's hard to keep track of. So I hope you guys learn a little more about arrays. Study this and you can become familiar with this. And then once you do, I hope you move on and watch my next tutorial. And remember to subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. What's up everyone, welcome to my 12th C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be talking to you guys about something called a loop, and the first kind of loop I want to go over is a for loop, and it's spelled F-O-R-L-O-O-P, so you know what I'm talking about. So what this loop does is allow you to perform a certain task, a bunch of times without having to type it over and over. You just type a task in and tell C++ how many times you want it to run, and it does it for you. So let's get started. As you can see, we already have both our includes and our basic, what we always have to start out. So let me move this somewhere you can see. There we go. And the syntax that we first need to get started is first declare a basic integer variable. Oops, we don't want to be typing up there. Right in your main function. So let's type int x. We'll just name the variable x to make it easy. And the syntax for the loop itself is the word for. And this means that you're going to begin a for loop. Then you want to add 2 parameters to the loop. And you don't need to put a semicolon at the end, just to leave it blank. Now inside these parameters there's going to be 3 separate things, and what we're going to be doing is giving it a range, giving the variable a range to tell C++ how many times we want to perform this task. And we use our variable that we declared right here, and the first thing we want to do is tell C++ where we want our variable to start. And 99% of the time we're going to be starting right at 0. And then add a semicolon, and the next thing you want to do is tell C++ where to stop. So let's put x is less than 9. So right now we have a range from 0 to 9, the first and second thing. And the last thing you have to do is tell our program how much you want to increment it by. And we're going to increment it by 1 every time. So instead of typing x equals x plus 1, a quicker way to do that is type in x plus plus. And this adds 1 to it every time, and x minus minus would subtract 1. So now that we have a range 0 to 9 and increment it by 1, we're going to have our action perform 9 times. So what action do we exactly want to do? Well, the very next line under our for loop is our instructions about what we want to do. And as usual, let's just make a simple output statement, and I'm just going to write hey there and give it a new, there we go, give it a new line. So what this is, So what this is going to do right now, we declared our variable, we said alright, 0 to 9, do it 1 for each time, and for every one of those times just output hey there on the screen. So let's save this and show you guys what it looks like. Hopefully I don't have any errors or nothing. And as you can see, our program executed hey there 9 times. And this is one way where you can perform a series of tasks again and again without having to type it over and over. And as you can see, if we didn't do this before, we would have to write C out this whole thing 9 times. But with this simple syntax, all you have to do is write this, and it can perform it all for you without having to go over it and over it, and it'll save you a bunch of space and a bunch of time. And another thing I want to show you guys real quick is you can just output the variable itself too. So say you want to start at 0 and go to 9, and it isn't going to show up 9 because it's less than 9, so it's only going to show 8. But this might be a little easier for you guys to grasp on to see what's going on right now. As you see, we first declared the variable, then went 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is another way where we can use a for loop to save a bunch of time and a bunch of code. So save this, and once you learn this, you can start using your programs to perform repetitive tasks with only a very small bit of code, and in the next tutorial we'll be going over probably another kind of loop. So I hope you enjoyed my tutorial, and remember to subscribe. Thanks. What's up everybody, welcome to your 13th C++ tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do a while loop. Now what a while loop is excuse me, got whooping cough. What a while loop is pretty much a for loop without all the beginning variables in it. It pretty much is a naked for loop. It pretty much just has the test condition in the body. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is declare a variable. Just make it a basic integer variable and set it equal to whatever you like. I'm going to set mine equal to 1. And the next thing you want to do after you declared a variable is start actually making the loop. Now unlike for, the syntax for this is while. And what this is pretty much going to do is you're going to have a test condition in the parentheses, and it's going to be something like when x is less or equal to 10 and then this thing in parentheses is called the test condition. So it's going to run whenever x is less than or equal to 10. So now that you told it when to run, you got to tell it what to do. So it says, alright, when x is less than or equal to 1, add your semicolons. What do we want you to do? We can make you do anything we want. So let's make you output on the screen. There we go. Cout. That's right. Hey there, Bessie. So we want you to output hey there, Bessie, and then let's just end the line. And now, unlike the for loop, you don't automatically increment up here. So right now we have, alright, integer x is equal to 1. And if we just keep running this and running this, it's going to be equal to 1 the whole time, and it's always going to be less than or equal to 10. So this is going to be an infinite loop, and it's going to keep running and running. So since we don't want that, we want to change x. So we say, alright, after you're done running this, we want you to make x equal to x plus 1. And what this is going to do is allow you to increment x by 1 each time, so it doesn't just keep running and running. And I'll show you guys what this does later. But again, to recap, you have your syntax for your while loop. This is called your test condition right here, and this in the semicolons, this is called the body. The body is pretty much the instructions for your loop, or what you want it to do. So enough talk, let's see this baby in action. Execute, compile, and run. Hopefully I don't got any errors. And hopefully if everything goes right, it should say hey there Bessie 10 times. So again, it says hey there Bessie, yada yada yada. And again, like the for loop, I'll show you guys by plugging x in the variable instead of a string when you execute, compile, and run. Right now, in this case, it outputs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this, again, is because we changed the variable and incremented it by 1 each time, instead of just keeping it 1. So, the difference between while loop and a for loop is pretty much that it's pretty much just stripped of all of this at the beginning, and you increment it in your body instead of your test condition. So that is the difference between a while loop and a for loop. And another thing I wanted to note, if this is false at the beginning, for example, if your variable was 11, then anything in the body isn't even going to run at all. So in order to this to run at all, this test condition needs to be true. If it's false, your body isn't going to run at all. But I'm sure you guys could figure that out. So those are pretty much the syntax and the basics to a while loop. I hope you learned something. Study this, practice making a while loop, and once you did, you can move on to my next tutorial. So thanks for watching. Bye. What's up, everyone? We're on my 14th C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys the famous do while loop. So in the last tutorial we covered the while loop. In this tutorial we're going to be covering the do while loop. Sounds fun? Oh, it is. So let's go ahead and get rid of our entire while loop. There's one last look at it, so goodbye. Alright. Sorry, I got smoker's cough. Alright, in the last tutorial we made a while loop, and I said it had a test expression and a body, and so does this one, but it's kind of flip-flopped around. What the do while loop allows you to do is it allows you to execute a piece of code at least once before even testing it at all. So sounds kind of dangerous, but alright, enough with the chit chat, let's just do it. The first thing, let's go ahead and declare a variable int equals 1. So we're gonna let's make int x equals 1. So we have an integer variable x and it's equal to 1. The syntax for your do loop is do, so you better not forget that because it's really easy. Next, in your body, you want to make your instructions what you want your loop to do, just like the loops before. So let's make something real easy but kind of fun at the same time. We'll make it output on the screen something clever. Let's say dentist appointment at 2:30. Get it? Dentist appointment at 2:30. It's a little joke, my sister told it to me. So after that you can put end line, since we're done with that line, and then we have to increment our variable so it doesn't keep repeating. X is equal to x plus 1, and right now what we have is a variable, and no matter what our while loop says, this is going to do this at least once. So it's going to output on the screen dentist appointment at 2:30, aka 2:30, and then it's going to increment it by 1. So now that we have that at least once, we're going to go ahead and build our while loop. So we're going to put while, and in our parameters we're going to want to put while x is less than or equal to 10. Nothing fancy. So here's what we got going on here. To recap one more time before I show you guys this loop, which you guys are just dying to see. You have an integer variable x is equal to 1. You're going to do the instructions at least once without any fight at all from anything else. And then after you're done doing it once, it's going to say, alright, now how many times do you want me to do this? Oh, for every time x is less than or equal to 10. So let's go ahead and do this 10 times. Alright, so enough with the chit chat. Execute, compile, and run this baby. Make sure I didn't mess anything up. So right now we have dentist appointment at 2:30, and this is because this variable was true, so it ran this, and then since it was true for 10 times, it ran it 10 times. So, but if you're asking, alright, what if this is false? What if you have a variable like 55 where x equals 55, so you're going to output it on the screen, but when it gets to this, it's false. What's going to happen? Well, what should happen, if I didn't mess anything up, it should run this code, dentist appointment at 2:30, at least one time, and by at least one time I mean run it one time. And then when it gets to this, it should not do anything else. So execute, compile, and run. Compiling, come on baby, no whammy, no whammy. That's what I'm talking about. So it ran it one time, dentist appointment at 2:30. So those are your basics for a do loop. Again, declare a variable, run the code at least once, and then test it and tell it if it's true still how many times you want it to run. So it's simple enough, and this loop is useful in a lot of different applications, but we won't get into that for now. for now, you should be studying this loop, probably rating my video a 5 out of 5. And once you learn this, you can move on to my next tutorial. So thanks for watching. Now, see you guys next time. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about something called the address operator. And what the address operator is it shows you where in your memory a variable is stored. So it's just easier just to show you guys, so let's get to it. The first thing we're going to need to do is make a couple variables. Let's make a couple int variables. It stands for integer. I'm going to call mine int finger is equal to 10 since I have 10 fingers, and int eyes is equal to 2 since I have 2 eyes. I don't know why finger is singular and eyes is plural, but that's the way it's going to be. And I'm probably going to mess it up, so just follow along. The next thing we're going to want to do, or the next thing I actually want to show you, is what this is. Output it on the screen. So let me just output this. Cout finger, and let me end that line. And let me cout. And anytime you want to get the address of a variable, you have to add the ampersand and then type in the variable. So for example, since finger is the variable, it's going to have the value of 10, and ampersand finger is the address of where that variable is located in the memory. So I'm going to add ampersand finger, then go ahead and end that line. And let me just show you guys right here what this is with eyes too. So let's eyes ampersand eyes. So right now we're going to output the variable finger, and it's going to have the value of 10, and then we're going to output the location and where finger is stored on your memory, and this is going to be the hexadecimal location that your computer sees. And again, we're going to do that with eyes, and then we're going to find the location of eyes that your computer sees. So if you're thinking, if you don't really understand why this is useful or what it's going to do, you'll understand later when we have to build programs and we have to use something called pointers, and this is what a pointer actually needs. But for now, let's just show you guys what this is. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up, and if I compiled it right, there we go. As you can see, the finger value of your variable is 10, but the location in your memory it's stored is 0x22ff44, and the variable of eyes, what the user sees is 2, but what the computer sees is 0x22ff40. And just a little side note, this kind of makes sense because in your memory this is stored 4 bits away. You can tell by 44 and 40, and this makes sense because since we're using int as our data type, int always uses 4 bytes of data, so that is why the variables are 4 bits away. So again, that is how you find the address to any variable to find its location in the memory. And if you're asking, alright Bucky, why the heck would you even want the address at all? Is that just a neat little trick you told me? No, you actually need this. Why? Well, you gotta stick around for my next tutorials to find out. So learn how to find the address. You don't really have to learn anything. It's one of the easiest things I taught you guys so far. But just study this tutorial, play around with it a little bit, and once you learn this, you're ready to move on to the next tutorial. So I'll see you then. What's up, everybody? Welcome to your C++ tutorial on pointers. Now, in the last tutorial, I told you guys how to make an address operator to show you guys where in your memory the variables were stored. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make a pointer. And what a pointer is a variable that holds the address in your memory. So it pretty much is a variable that points to the address in your memory. Just saying it twice. But so the first thing that we're gonna want to do when we're building a pointer is declare the pointer, or tell C++ that we're going to be working with it. So the first thing that you need to do is tell what type of data you're going to be working with. And this is the same type of data that you're going to be using for your variable. for example, if this was a char or double, then you're going to want to write char or double when declaring your variable. But since this is an integer, you're going to want to write integer for your pointer. So we have an integer pointer, and the syntax to declare a pointer is star. And it's actually called an asterisk. It's a symbol above the A, but I usually call it a star, so just deal with it. And then you can name your pointer anything you want. I'm going to name mine pointer because I am that creative. And then once you're done declaring your pointer, C++ goes, alright, I can see that you're going to be working with a pointer, but what do you want to point to? What address in your memory that do you want to point to? And since it asks, we have to answer it. We go, alright, since we already have this variable called pointer that we just declared right here, you don't need to use the asterisk because that's just declaring it. We're going to say, alright, our variable pointer is equal to the address. And remember from our last tutorial, we used the ampersand for the address. It's the location of our the memory. You use the ampersand and it shows you where the address is, and you can use any of these, finger or eyes. I'm going to use finger. So far, just to recap, we declared a pointer called pointer, and then we told C++, alright, this pointer is equal to whatever the address of memory is of finger. So to prove to you guys that this has worked, I'm going to output on the screen pointer, and if everything goes right, then this should output on the screen the memory in your address that finger is equal to. Again, if I outputted the variable finger, it would be equal to 10, but since I outputted the address of memory where it points to, it should be some crazy hexadecimal code. So come on, compile, no whammy, come on, hexadecimal code, and there we go. It says 0x22ff44, and again, this is the address in your memory that your pointer is pointing to. So again, to recap one more time, and if you're saying, alright, this is really confusing, it's because, well, it is confusing pretty much. C++ is confusing, but I'm trying to make it real easy for you guys. We have a variable, we declared the variable, and we declared the pointer, and what a pointer does is pretty much point to the space in your memory. So what space in your memory do you want to point to? We want to point to wherever in your memory the variable finger is. So right here we just output it on the screen. Where is it? This is your place in your memory on your computer. This is what your computer is seeing right now. That's where your variable finger is stored. So this will make a lot more sense when we actually use it to do something useful. But for right now, just study this tutorial, learn how to build a basic pointer, and learn the basics of what it does. And in my next couple tutorials, this is all going to come together, and it's going to be a lot more useful in your applications. So thanks for watching. Remember to go to my site, thenewboston.com, and I'll see you next time. What's up, everyone? Welcome to your 17th C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use an if statement. Now what an if statement does is pretty much you give the computer an option. You said, alright, I'm going to tell you something. If it's true, I want you to run this bit of code, but if it's not true, then forget it. Don't run the code at all. So the first thing we need to do before we even get started is declare a variable. I'm going to name mine variable so it is not confusing, and I'm going to set it equal to 16. You can set your variable equal to anything. Next, we have to make the syntax for our if statement, and that's simple enough, if. Now what this if statement is going to do is run the test condition that's going to be in your parentheses right here, and if that's true, then it's going to run the code in the body of your if statement. If this is false, then it's not going to run this code at all. So let's give it a test condition. We say, alright, if variable is less than 30, so if 16 is less than 30, which is true, so it should run this, we want you to output on the screen the word cello, and then we want you to end the line. In case this is false, what happens is the if statement skips this completely and just moves on to the next line. But since the statement is true right now, then it's going to run this and then move on to the next line. So just to make a next line real quick to show you guys what's actually going on, you can tell what's going on easier. Not part of the loop. I'll make another line of code that you guys would use in your program that isn't part of the loop. So again, what's going to go on right here is this C++ is going to evaluate this variable. It's going to say, alright, if this variable is less than 30, which is true, it's going to run this line of code in your if statement, and then it's going to run this line of code just because this is a regular part of your program. If it was false, it's going to skip this and go right to this. So let's go ahead, compile and run, and if everything works out, we should see cello and not part of the loop. And there we go. Again, as you can see, the if statement evaluated that our variable was true, so it ran the statement in the if code, in the if body, and then it moved on to the next regular part of your program. And now if you're asking, alright, what if this is false? I guess you guys can probably tell what's going to happen. What if you've got something like 32, and you have an if statement that evaluates it as false? Since the variable is now not less or greater than 30, this is false. So what C++ is going to do is say, alright, your test is false, so I ain't running this code at all, Haas. I'm just going to skip this and move on to this. Let's go ahead, compile and run. And after everything worked out fine, we shouldn't see cello at all, and it should just successfully move on to our next part of our program. So again, the if statement evaluated this, said, alright, I'm skipping this since it's false, I'm just moving on. And there's what you get. So that bit of code is your basics for your if loop. Again, play around with the test condition, and in the next tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do a if-else statement most likely. So stick around, and I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. What's up everyone, welcome to your 18th, I believe, C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial we're going to be going over an if-else statement. In last tutorial we went over an if statement, which said, alright, if you do this, then run this. If not, skip it. Well, in this case, we're going to tell C++, alright, evaluate this. If it's true, run this. But if it's not, don't skip it and run this bit of code. So instead of just saying skip it, it gives it another option. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is declare a variable, and I'm going to make mine answer since we're going to be building a short little quiz for this tutorial. So now we have a variable called answer. So now we have an answer. Let's ask a question. Let's ask, how old is Bucky? And end the line. And let's give the user a way to input their answer, and you use this if you've been watching my tutorials. Cin is going to let the user input a number, and once it does input that number, it's going to set it equal to the variable answer. So now we have a question on the screen, and the user inputs an answer. Now let's tell C++ what to do with it. We said, alright, if the variable answer is equal to, and make sure you have two equal signs instead of just one. If you have it one, it's going to try to set the variable equal to it. If you have two, it's going to compare it. So you want two. If answer is equal to 21, then we want you to output on the screen. Don't forget your brackets. We want you to output on the screen, you're right, Bucky is 21. And oops, that's embarrassing. And then let's just end that line. And now we need to build our brand new else statement. So unlike before, if this evaluates false, it doesn't just keep going. We want to give it another option. And since this is the only option, then we don't ever need a test condition for else. So again, if this is true, it's going to run this, but if it's false, it's going to run this option. So let's just say, alright, if you give us the wrong answer, then we want to output on the screen, you're wrong. And then let's just end that line. So to recap one more time, here's what's going on. We have a variable, we ask a question that the user inputs, and whatever number the user inputs, it's going to set it equal to the variable answer. So if you guess it right in IM and you enter 21, it's going to be equal to 21, and it's going to output this. You're right, Bucky is 21. But if not, it's going to go to your else, and it's going to output you're wrong. So let's recap, not recap, let's run this so you guys can see what's going on. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up. And here's our program right now. How old is Bucky? Let's go ahead and press 21, press enter, and it says, you're right, Bucky is 21. But let's go ahead and run that one more time so we give it the wrong answer. And it says, how old is Bucky? 45? You're wrong. So let me just show you guys all. Let's just go over this one more time. An if statement alone without the else statement, it's going to check if this test condition is true, and if not, it's going to move on to the rest of your program. What the else statement does is give your if another option. So instead of saying, alright, if this is false, then instead of running this bit of code, run this bit of code, and then move on to the later parts of your program. So those are your basics of your if-else statement. And if you want to get the source code, I'm going to be posting it on my website, thenewboston.com. So you can just copy it from there and put it right into your compiler yourself without having to type all this. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned the basics of an if-else statement, and I will see you guys next time. So up guys, welcome to your 19th C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you guys how to use a do loop and else if else statement to make a simple program. So let's go ahead and make a couple variables first. What our program is going to do is ask you how old I am, and then you're going to have to guess what my age is, and based on the input it's going to give you choices on what to do. So let's go ahead and make a variable for your answer, and of course if you have an answer you need a question, and my question is how old is Bucky? And I'm 21 by the way, in case you were just dying to learn already and you just want to watch your video because of that. So let's go ahead and end that line, and then once we got our variable and our question, we can go ahead and start making our if statements. So the first thing we want to do is have the user input an answer for our variable. So whatever they input right here, that's going to be stored in the variable answer. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and make a simple if statement. If the answer that they did is greater than 21, I'm gonna have it output too high since I am not over 21 yet. And then we want to end that line. And then in the last tutorial I told you guys how to use it else, but if you have multiple choices, you can use something called else if, not is, if. And this allows you to have multiple choices the same question. So I'm going to have if answer is less than 21, I want you to, let's just copy this, copy and paste. If it's less than 21, I'm going to have you input too low. So if you guess 13, then that's too low. But if you don't guess an answer that's too high and you don't guess an answer that's too low, I am going to have you output on the screen, let's see, what can it be? Let's just have it say correct. Nice and simple. And line with a semicolon. Now, since we have a basic statement, what this is going to do right now is it's going to allow you to run the entire program once. So say you guess an answer that's higher than 21, it's going to say too high, and then it's going to end the program. So let's go ahead and execute, compile, and run right now. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up. And it says, how old is Bucky? Now you get to guess. 43, press enter. Too high, press any key to continue. That's the end of your program. But you want to keep guessing and guessing until you get the right number. So to do that, here's what you need to do. You need to make a simple loop called a do loop. And remember, a do loop executes any bit of code at least once before checking whether it's true or not. So you want to do all of this code at least once, and the syntax for do loop is of course do. And once you get to while, this is where it checks if your test is correct or not. While the variable answer is not equal to 21. And then end that. So what's going to happen is this. You're going to keep getting this test over and over again, and it's going to allow you to keep guessing and guessing. And then at the end, if you guessed 21, it's going to end the program. But as long as you didn't guess 21, and as long as your answer is not equal to 21, it's going to keep doing this loop over and over. So again, do this loop while the answer is not equal to 21. So let's go ahead, execute, compile, and run, and let's see, as long as we didn't mess anything up, we should get a nice working program. How old is Bucky? 55. Too high. 66 or 60? Nah, I don't want that. Too high. Is he 11? Too low. How about 21? Correct. And that's the end of our program. So again, using a do loop and a while loop and a simple if statement, this is how you can build a very simple C++ program that has multiple options. And again, if you want more than one option, you can use else if statement as many times as you want. You don't have to use this just once. You can use it 10 times if you want. So again, that is how you build a simple C++ program with multiple options. Study that and learn how to use the do loop to repeat your program over and over. And I will be posting this code on my website, thenewboston.com. So if you want this raw code, you can go and get it there for free. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. What's up, guys? Welcome to my 20th C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial we're going to be going over logical OR operator. And just like the OR says in English, it's going to give you an option, and as long as one of those options is true, then it's going to run the code. For example, if you tell your mom, alright mom, I want cookies or a grilled cheese sandwich, she can either bring you cookies or a grilled cheese sandwich, or she can bring you cookies and a grilled cheese sandwich, and I bet you'll still be happy. So that's what's pretty much going to go on right now, and that's what I'm going to teach you guys how to do. But in this tutorial, we're going to be making a simple program that's, well, let's just do it by ear. So the first thing you need to know before you even start is what the OR operator is. And instead of the word OR, it's the two parallel lines, and those are those. It's above your enter key or your return key on your keyboard if you hold down shift. So for example, you can put if 5 is greater than 8, which is false, or if 2 is less than 4, which is true, the code is going to run. So instead of typing OR, you have to type your OR operator right there. So let's go ahead and create a simple program. The first thing that we're going to want to do is ask the user a question. So let's just say, do you think Hannah Montana is hot? And then let's end the line. So now we have a question, do you think Hannah Montana is hot? And then we have a new line. And after this line, we want to make an answer for it. So since it's not a number, we have to use char, and this stands for character, I believe. And let's make our variable called answer. Next, we want the user to input whatever they think it is. So whatever the user inputs, it's going to be stored in the variable answer. Next, we have to give the user all the choices. Actually, let's do this. Y or N. Since that's what we want the user to enter, Y or N. And this, of course, stands for yes or no. So let's go ahead and say if your answer, let's say, is equal to Y, or answer is equal to capital Y, then what do we want to output? So if you press yes, let's change those to single strings. I don't know if I taught you guys that yet. But if you said yes, that Hannah Montana is hot, then let's output on the screen, you effing perv. I hope my mom doesn't see this tutorial, but it's going to teach you guys how to do it. So if they enter yes, Hannah Montana is hot, we have to tell them that they are effing perv. Let's say else if, and let's just go ahead and copy this and change these to no's. Else if your answer is lowercase n or an uppercase n, and remember, this gives you two choices right here. Else if you say no, let's output on the screen, copy, we'll output okay, you're fine. As it says, alright, you're good to go. Else, and this is only in the case if you don't output on the screen either yes or no, then we want to tell you answer the question right, idiot. Since if they were too stupid to press yes or no, either uppercase or lowercase, then we lost all hope for them. So we're going to go ahead and end our line, and that should be it with our program. So now to recap, well, let's go ahead and run this program before I start recapping, because I don't want to waste time if I messed anything up. So compile, and it's going to ask, do you think Hannah Montana is hot? Let's go ahead and press lowercase n. It's going to say, okay, you're fine. Press any key to exit. Execute. Let's compile and run this again. And just to show you guys the else statement, do you think Hannah Montana is hot? Let's say bean sausage. What? Bean sausage? So then it says, answer the question right, idiot. So again, what we did here is we used the logical operator OR, which is the two parallel lines, to give our user two different options when answering. And this is useful in many cases. This is just one of the main cases that when you want a user to input data, but they can input it a bunch of ways. Say, if you ask them who was the first president, they can either say Washington or George Washington or George Washington with a capital W, or things like that. So that's how programs in C++ do that. So you can practice this code. I'm going to be copying all this code to my website, thenewboston.com. So if you want it, you can check it out there. But copy this program and play around with it. And this is how you make a simple program using the logical OR operator. So again, it's going to be in my site, thenewboston.com. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you learned how to make a simple do you think Hannah Montana is hot program. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. What's up everyone, welcome to your 21st C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to make a simple switch statement. Now what a switch statement is pretty much just like an if, else statement, but it's a lot easier to organize and a lot easier to work with and read. So let's go ahead and create a basic program that I can show you guys how to use a switch statement. The first thing I want to do is declare an integer variable, typing int x. The next thing I want to do is ask the user a question. So I'm going to ask, how many legs do you have? And then line. and after that I'm going to have the user input some data on the screen, and whatever they input, it's going to be stored in the variable x. You should learn all this from last time, so I'm not going to go over it again. Next, let's get to the fun stuff, the new stuff, the switch statement. The syntax for your switch statement is switch. And in the test condition, you're going to say what variable you want to test. We want to test the variable x. Now, after we tell C++ what variable we want to test, we got to give it a bunch of different options or cases. The first thing we need to do is make our first case. So the syntax for that is case. Now you give it an option. In the case that they enter 1, enter a colon, we want you to execute this bit of code. Cout, let's say if they enter 1, you are a pirate. Because I can't think of any other thing with one leg right now. So, and then end that line. And then after you're done outputting your code on the screen, you want to add something called a break statement. Now what a break statement is going to let you do, and you're going to see this later on, if you find what your case is in the very first time, then there's no reason to go through the rest of the options, especially if you have like 100 different options. So what a break statement says is, alright, we found our answer, we don't need to go through the rest of the options because they're obviously not true. So just end the code right now and go on to the rest of your program. So again, what C++ is doing right now is this. It's going to say, alright, we want to look for x. In the case that it's equal to 1, execute this code. And now, in the case that it's equal to 2, we want you to output on the screen, you are human. End line. And this is a way where you can give C++ a bunch of different options, and it's pretty much a lot easier than using if, else if, else. Let me move this up so you can see. And so what C++, again, just to reiterate, it pretty much goes through all of these options until it finds one that matches x, and once it does, it executes the code right below it. So again, if you're asking, alright, what if it runs through all the options and it still didn't find what it was looking for? That's when you need to do something that's equivalent to the else statement. It's kind of like your last resort. It's called a default. And what a default is when none of these match, this is the code it runs. So if it's default and you didn't enter 1 or 2, you entered some huge number, it's going to say, I don't know what you are. And then we want you to end that line. So let me show you guys how this program works. And again, you don't need a break at the end of your default statement since it's already at the end, so it already knows that you're going to be done executing the code. So let's go ahead, compile and run this program. And hopefully I don't have any errors. And I don't. How many legs do you have? Let's say 1. You are a pirate. Press any key to exit. Execute, compile, and run. And let me show you guys what the default statement looks like. When it asks, how many legs do you have? I'm going to enter 14. And it says, I don't know what you are. Press any key to exit. So again, the basics of a switch statement, you're going to say what variable do you want to evaluate in your test condition. And after your case, you're going to give all the options of that variable, such as the option 1 or 2. And then after your options, you're going to give it what code you want to execute. And don't forget the break. And again, if it runs through all of these options and it still didn't find what it was looking for, it's going to go to the default statement. So if you learn your if, else statement last time, you can see that this is a ton easier way to store information and to sort through data and choices. So study this, practice making a simple switch statement. I'm going to be posting all this code on my website, thenewboston.com. So if you want the source code, go there and just snatch it from me. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next tutorial. What's up everybody, welcome to your first tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be introducing something called structures. So what a structure is kind of a variable that lets you store a bunch of similar information. Now, while an array can hold a bunch of similar items, all of the items in an array have to be the same data type, such as char, int, float, stuff like that. But with structures, you can store a bunch of related information, and it doesn't have to be the same data type. So say you wanted to store information about a bunch of people, like their name and how old they are. First you have a char variable for their name and an integer variable for how old they are. You couldn't do this with an array, so what C++ did is it made something called a structure, and it lets you hold items of more than one data type. And in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to do that. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is declare a structure, and to do this you need to use the syntax struct struct, and then after this is the syntax for structure, struct. So this is going to stay the same when you're declaring all your structures. And next you want to give a name or a tag when you're declaring your structure, and I'm going to name my new person since we are going to be talking about people today. Now after this, press enter and add 2 curly braces and add a semicolon at the end. Now in your curly braces you're gonna add something called members, and a member is pretty much all of the bits of information that you're gonna want to use in your structure. So the first type of variable we're gonna want to use is something called let's store the person's name. So in all of these structures we're gonna want to store the person's name and age. So let's go ahead and make a char name 20, and if you don't know what all this means, then it's in my last tutorials. So now we're in the name variable, we're gonna store the person's name. And another piece of information we're probably gonna want to store is an int, and we'll name that variable age. So integer, age is an integer, you guys all know that. So again, just to recap, the struct is the keyword for declaring a structure. The new person is called the tag when declaring a structure, and all of these things, new person has 2 members. It has your name and the age variable. And again, these are just the types of variables. So now that we declared our structure, we're gonna want to know how to use our structure in an actual program. So here's your program, int main right here, and anytime you want to use a structure, this is what you need to do. The first thing that you're going to need to do is first get your structures declaration by saying new person, and yours might be different, but that's the one I'm going to use. So new person, and we'll say Greg, or let's just say Bucky, because that's who I'm talking about. Now that we have the person's Bucky, we're going to want to say some information about him. So we got to tell what the name and the age of Bucky is. So go ahead and add your curly braces and semicolon, just as always. And the syntax for doing this is, of course, we have a char variable. So the first thing we're going to want to do is add the name. Now we use this and set it equal to the first variable in your structure. And since we're using the new person structure, the first variable is a name. So give me my name, it's Bucky. And just add a regular comma. And on the next line, the next piece of information that our structure asks for is its age. So go ahead and add 21. And you don't need a comma after that, since that is the last part of declaring our structure. And now we have the information from Bucky. My name is Bucky and my age is 21. So in case you're wondering, alright, now we have all this, how can we actually use this as a variable? Anytime you want to use this as a variable, let me just show you guys output on the screen. The first thing when you're calling your variable, the first thing you need to do is find the tag, and the tag is Bucky. So go ahead and write Bucky, and the next thing you're going to want to write is whatever member you want to use. And these are the members: name, age. So let's say Bucky age, or the age of Bucky. That's what we want to use. So go ahead, and I'm just going to end my line. So again, whenever you want to use a structure, you need to first make the tag, and then you want to name your structure, and then you insert the pieces of information that go along with your structure. And again, whenever you want to call it, you name your tag first, and then you name whatever member of it, and that's how you call it. So let's execute, compile, and run. And hopefully, if I didn't get any errors, I should have the number 21. And there you go. And that is how you use structures for when you are using structures in C++. So again, let's just recap this one more time so it'll stick in your head, because I know it's really confusing. The first thing you want to do when you want to use structures in your program is, the first thing is to put the tag new person of your structure that you already declared. The next thing that you're going to want to do is make the name that you're going to be using when you use your tag. So I'm going to name mine Haas. We have a person named Haas. And again, add your two curly braces and an apostrophe, and in your curly braces you add the structure members. So the first thing it asks for is the name, and the name for this person is going to be Haas Jones. And the next thing it asks for is the age, and he's going to be 45. So those are the two things that it asks for: name and age. And again, to output on the screen, you first need its tag, which is Haas, and then name, or actually we'll do age this time. You need its tag, and then its member, which is pretty much who you're talking about and what property you're talking about. So let's go ahead and execute, compile, and run. And hopefully, if nothing goes wrong, which it did, new person Haas. Oh, we forgot to add an equal sign. And since you're declaring variables, remember that equal sign. Anytime you declare a variable, you have to have an equal sign. Execute, compile, and run, and it'll work this time, trust me. We get the age of Haas Jones, 45. So this is something you guys need to watch probably a couple times. Learn this until it sticks in your head. The most confusing part of this is the syntax, so once you learn it, you'll be fine. So again, thank you for watching. In the next tutorial, we're probably going to be going over how to work with text files. It's going to be real interesting. So again, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. All of this information I'm going to have posted on my website, thenewboston.com, so if you want to just copy it, you can go right to my site and get it there. So thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next tutorial. What's up, everybody? Welcome to your 23rd C++ tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to input and output files. Actually, I'm just going to be teaching you how to create a file, but eventually we will be learning that, so just stick with me. The first thing that we're going to want to do is include something that's going to allow us to input and output files, and this is called the F stream. So let's go ahead and add another include. Move this out of the way. And the syntax for this is F stream. Now this little bit of code right here, it's going to allow you to stream text files in and out. So just make sure you have that anytime that you're working with getting a file or outputting a file. You don't really need to know the workings behind that, but make sure you got it. The next thing that I'm going to show you guys to do is how to input or output and create a file. The first thing that you're going to want to do is go in your main function and type in OF stream, and this is a syntax for creating, well, let me just finish this, my file with a semicolon. And what this does is it creates an object called my file, and this object is going to allow you to output files on your computer or create files. So let's go ahead and do that right now. The first thing that we're going to want to do is use your object my file. It says, alright, we have this object that allows you to output files. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is open a file. And to do this, type the word my file period open, and in your parentheses, name the file that you want to open. Now I'm gonna say new file because I don't have a file on my computer yet. And if you open a file that you don't already have on your computer, it's going to create a file for you. So right now we used our object that we just created, my file, and we are going to open a file called new file.txt. We're going to open a new text file, and I don't have this on my computer yet, so C++ is going to create a text file for me. The next thing that we're going to want to do is add some text to our file, just because we don't want to be opening up an empty text file. So to do this, get your object my file, and since we already have this text file open, whatever we input to my file is going to input to this text file. So what do we want to write in, oops, there we go. Let's write this will show up in the file, and we'll add a new line for ease of reading. So now what we did is we created an object that allowed us to open files. We opened or created a file called new file.txt, and we added some words or a sentence to our text file just because we didn't want it empty. And after you have created all your files and added some text to it, you always want to close whatever you've been working on, and this just helps so you don't have any memory leaks or anything like that. So let's go ahead and execute compile and run. And I know you guys can't see my desktop because of my screen recorder, but you guys have to believe that I don't have a file already. So this is compiling, and it's when it's running, it's creating a file right now, and it says press any key to continue. And in case you guys can't see it, or not in case, I know you guys didn't see it, but there's a little icon that popped up. Let me try and drag it. Oh, I can't. But there's a little icon that popped up in a new text file just created on my desktop. So let me click and open that and show you guys. This file was just created when I ran that, and the text on it says this will show up in the file. So I have a file called new file that was just created here, and the text that I inputted, it says this will show up in the file, is this text right here. So let me close that, and again let's recap this one more time so it sticks in your head. The first thing you're going to need to do is include this, and this allows you to input and output files and not just text. Right here creates an object so you can work with files, and this object you use throughout the rest of your program, and you can open your files with it, close files, write text to a file, and that's what we did all right here. So study this, practice creating files and writing some text into them. And again, just in case you guys wanted to know, if you guys have a file that's already created and you do this, let's just put new line. If you already have a file that's created and you try to make a new line or open it and do this, it's gonna replace what's already there. It's not gonna just add something else onto your rest of your thing. So again, as you can see, it didn't just say this is a text we created then added a new line to it. It totally replaces it. So if you already have a file and you open it, it's going to totally replace it and give you that what you just saw happen. So again, learn how to do this. It's really simple. If you practice with it like 2 times, you'll be an expert on it. So in case you guys want to get this code, I'm going to put it on my site, thenewboston.com, so you can get it there. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next tutorial. What's up guys, welcome to your 24th C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial I'm going to show you guys how to read a file. I already showed you guys how to write a file, so it only makes sense. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is include some more libraries. So let's go ahead and put include, and the first one we're going to include is something called fstream. I think we included this last tutorial, but I deleted it since then. So, and another one we want to include, spelled that wrong. Another one we want to include in the last one for this tutorial is the cstdlib. I believe this is the C standard library, and this fstream is going to let us read files, and we need a method from the C standard library because we're going to be using just one function to shut down in case everything goes wrong. So, not really important, not part of the tutorial, but you definitely need them. So how this program is going to work is we're going to show a blank line on the screen, and we're going to have the user type the name of a file they want to open, and when they open it, it's going to read through it. So let's go ahead, and the first variable we need is a file name. So char file name, and just set it equal to 50 or something. Should be plenty enough unless you have some huge file names. So the next thing we need to do is, in order to open files, we need a special object to open them. So I'm going to name my object Bucky. So from if stream, go ahead and give it an object. Again, I'm going to name mine Bucky. You can name yours whatever. And now, anytime we want to work with files, we have to use that Bucky object, and this can use the functions to open files, read files, write files. But anyways, that's the object you need. So the next thing we want to do is give the user an opportunity to write whatever file they want to open. So of course, use your cin and get line, and this is going to give them a cursor, of course, and whatever they write is going to be stored in file name, and just put 50 again. Makes sense. And now after they enter that, whatever file name they type is going to be stored in the variable file name right here. So now what we want to do is open it using our file object. So Bucky, again, open, that's a built-in function in C++, and let's go ahead and open file name. The parameter it takes is what file you want to open, and of course don't forget your semicolons like I've been. So now what we have here is pretty much made a variable, an object. We said, alright, go ahead and enter a file name, and then I'm going to open that file. So now let's do some housekeeping stuff. The first thing we need to do is test if the file is open, and if it isn't, we want to exit the program immediately. So let's go ahead and put if, and put exclamation point Bucky is underscore open, and this will test Bucky is open will be true if it opens. So if exclamation point, it means alright, if this is not open, what do we want to do? There we go. Well, what we want to do is exit, and then go ahead and write exit underscore failure. And this, if you're wondering where this function came from, this came from the C standard library. So if the file can't open, we just want to exit the program. We don't want to, this is a simple program I'm building, so no need to do anything else. So easy enough. And let me scroll up right here so I can show you guys a little more. And now we can move on. So the next thing we want to do is, if the file is open, then actually do something besides just having a blank cursor sit in our screen. So let's make another variable called word, and set it equal to 50. And make sure I haven't been forgetting my semicolons. I've been programming Python all day, so I might forget my semicolons, might not. So the next thing we need to do is get the value, the first value from that document. So go ahead and get word. And now let's say while Bucky dot good. Again, good is a built-in function, and this is going to say, alright, while we aren't to the end of the file yet, and don't use isOpen, because if you use isOpen, then it's going to keep going. So good is a function that means, alright, as long as you aren't to the end of the file. And remember, this while loop is only going to run if the file is open, so we don't have to test for that. And what do we want to do if the file is open? Well, let's go ahead and just output to the screen what's in the file. So cout word, remember that's the value, and then let's go ahead and add a space in between, because if we don't, it's going to look like a huge long word, because whenever it loops through, it's going to omit the spaces. So let's go ahead, and after that, let's go ahead and just get the next word. So let me run this for you guys, and as you can see, well, you can't see it. Crap, I tried to drag it, didn't work. But anyways, I have a file in the same directory named beefy, and I'm gonna go ahead and open that. So execute, compile and run. Come on, baby, see how many errors I got. Come on, come on. There we go. So let's go ahead and type in beefy.text. Go ahead, and there's only one sentence. It says this is a new file, that yada yada yada. And if you don't believe me, here's beefy right here. This is a new file. Bam. So let's go ahead and try to enter a file that we don't have. Let's go ahead. See, I had beefy in that same directory, but I don't have a file called like tuna fish or something. So tuna fish.text. Open that, it exits. So let me show you guys one more time how this works. We went and we included this stuff so we can use the built-in functions that came with what we wanted to use. You should know what those mean. But here's to the meat of our program. We first made a variable called file name, because whenever they inputted that, we need something to store their file name in. We next built an object so we can work with files. We had them input something on the screen and it stored it in the variable file name. We next opened that file, depending on what it was, and we said, alright, if that's not a file and if we can't open it, just exit the program like we did when we typed tuna fish. But if it is, then do this. What you need to do is we need to make a new variable to store the values. Each value was a word, so that's why I named it word. And then what this did is just loop through each word and put a space in between. And at the end of that, of course, system pause, return nothing, yada yada yada. Not that exciting, but you need to know it. So that's your quick tutorial on how to open files and how to read from them. Again, this isn't the ideal way you want to do this, but this is probably the easiest way that I can explain, so that's why I did that. So again, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial. So thank you, and I'll see you then. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 25th tutorial in C++. And this tutorial, I'm going to teach you guys how to use an array and pass it into a function. So pretty much how to use functions and arrays as one in harmony. So peaceful. But listen up. Here's how you do it. The first thing that we need to build is a function. So this function is pretty much gonna loop through the array and sum up all the numbers in it. And you guys already know how to do this, but you didn't put it in a function before, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I think a good name for this would be answer, and of course it's going to take two parameters, the array of course, I'm going to name it Bucky, and the number of elements that I'm going to name num. Simple enough. Now let's go ahead and build the function body. Make sure I got all that right. Good enough. The first variable you need in here is the sum of the numbers, and I'm going to set that equal to 0, and you probably should too. The next thing we're going to want to do is loop through our array. So let's go ahead and we'll set the index equal to I and start at 0, since 0 is the first element of the array. And make sure that I is less than num, because remember, num is the amount of elements in your array. And then we want to increment by I every time. Don't want to do anything fancy here. Just basic looping through an array. Nothing to see here. Move, yeah, get some nice spacing. There we go. Now what we want to do is when it loops through each element, we want to store it into a sum. So put sum plus equal to Bucky I. And what this is going to do is it's going to take the first element, add it to sum. Second element, add it to sum. Third element, add it to sum until it gets to the end of the array. So of course, after all our hard work, we probably want to return something, and that would be the sum or our answer. But we can't write answer because that's the name of our function. So after we built a function, we need to prototype it. And let's go ahead and copy and paste. And prototyping, in case you forgot, all you have to do is take the header and add it above main with a semicolon at the end. And that's because when we use that function, C++ knows what it does, pretty much. That's a real basic. And now what we got is a function that takes an array and adds up all of the elements in it. So in order to use this, we probably are going to need an array. So let's go ahead and make one right now. I'm going to name my numbers because I'm just that creative, and I'm going to have 5 elements in it. And now let me get 5 random elements. 4, this, some of that, 43, and 7. Looks pretty random. Make sure I got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And now what we want to do is set a variable for the total, and we want to set it in this main function. We can't use this sum because this variable is only local to this function, so we need another variable. We couldn't put sum, I believe, but that would be too confusing. So int total, and this is going to store the answer of whatever this function returned us. So let's go ahead and put answer because that's the name of our function. And of course it takes 2 parameters, the name of the array and the amount of elements in the array. So the name of the array is numbers, and the amount of elements in the array is 5. Semicolon, enter. A little too easy. Now let's just output on the screen what we did. So put C out, and let's just put something like the total number, or actually the sum of all elements in the array. Make sure you have a couple typos in there, and set it equal to total, end that line, and semicolon. Good. So now that everything looks right, until I run this and probably get a bunch of errors, go ahead and compile and run it, and we'll see what we get. Got a feeling I forgot a semicolon somewhere. Nope. The sum of the elements in the array, 131. So as you can see through all my fast typing, 131 is the sum of all the elements in the array. So let me explain to you one more time what we did. We prototyped the function up here for down here. That's the function. We now made an array called numbers, and that array had 5 elements in it. And then we said, alright, take this variable total and hold the answer of your array. And what we did right here is call the function answer. And I need to take a breather before I explain. This it took 2 arguments, numbers, which was the array, and 5. And it took numbers and threw in Bucky, and 5 and threw in num. And then it looped through and summed all of the elements in the array, and outputted that variable. As you can see, we returned it right here. So then after that, the answer of that sum was stored in the variable total. So then we just outputted the sum of all the elements in the array is total. Probably should put a space right there, but we didn't. So, and that is how well, I guess that's it. That's how you basically use an array and pass it into a function. So I just wanted to show you this tutorial so you can know that it isn't just boring integers or variables that you can throw into a function, but you can also use arrays in there, and that's going to come in use later on when we are building programs. So that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial I'm probably going to go over some more advanced stuff in functions. So copy as I did, and after you copy all this, trust me, you'll be a pro at it. So again, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. What's up guys, welcome to your 26th C++ tutorial. and in this tutorial I'm going to be teaching you guys how to build a function that allows the user to input their own elements in the array, or populate the array as some people like to call it. So let's go ahead and make an int function, and I'm going to name my populate, if I could spell it. And it's going to take some parameters, double array, in case they enter decimal points. Actually, let's name it array1. I don't like naming stuff array for some reason. Int number, and this is going to be the number of elements in the array. So now that we got our function header, let's go ahead and make the function body. The first thing we need is a variable for when they input numbers. So let's go double input, and now we just need a counting variable, int I. And now let's just go make a for loop to loop through the array. So for, then put I set equal to 0, and then put when I is less than number, since this is the number of elements in the array, don't want to go outside that, I plus plus. So inside our for loop, what are we gonna have? There we go. Come on, space. Take me an hour to get my spaces right. Let me move this up a little bit in the meantime. So now in our for loop, what do we want to have? Well, let's just have a little prompt. Cout. Here's my darn spaces again. Enter value for item, and then we will put I plus 1. So let's go I plus 1. Put that in parentheses just to be sure. And why are we adding plus 1? Because the index of array 0 is actually the first item, so just to make it readable. Then we'll go ahead and end that line. And now what we need to do is whatever they input, well, let's go ahead and just put sin input, so whatever they input is going to be stored in the variable input. So now we want to take that variable and pass it into the array. So array1, actually array1, and put I, since it's just going to loop through just like it's spitting out an array, and you want to set this equal to input. So then whatever they input the first time, it's going to be stored in the first index of the array. It's going to loop through. Whatever they input the second time, it's going to be stored in the second index of array, and it's going to go on and on until it gets to the end of array, which we didn't tell you how many yet. So they're actually going to have to input a bunch of numbers, and then just return something like I. We won't use that, but we need to do something. And next we need to prototype this, of course. So copy, paste, clear semicolon, prototype it, and now we need to call it. So the first thing we need is an array. So put double Bucky, and let's just make it 5. You can actually make it whatever you want, and set it equal to an empty array, since they're going to be populating it. We don't need to, save us the work. Now we need to call our function populate and call Bucky and 5, since there are 5 elements right there. Now if we go ahead and run this right now, we're going to be able to, as long as I don't got any errors, which I probably do, to input a bunch of numbers in the array, and it's going to populate the array. So enter value for item 1, 23, and it's going to go all the way to 5, 56, and the 4, 4, 4. And now it does nothing. So what we want to do is, we already populated our array. So Bucky now has the values in each index, but it would be useful if we had another function just to spit out what we already did, so we know that, you know, it was put to good use and not just a total waste of time. So let's go ahead and make a function to spit out all our data, just for looks. So I'll name it spit, and of course double, this is the same as before, array, spell that right, array1, square brackets, and int number. And now in your function body, what are we going to do for this? Make sure I got my header right, double array1, looks good to me. Well, we're just going to have a basic for loop. This is going to be even easier than the last one. Int I equals 0. Let me move my cursor out of the way. As long as I is less than number, and another semicolon, and just iterate it through. Looking good, looking good. So now this is going to go through the array, and let's just put cout the value of item, make sure you get your spaces, I+1 is in, make sure you put spaces on either side of that, is array 1, and then put your I. So this is going to loop through the array, and it says the value of item 1, and it's going to give you the 1. And then it says the value of item 2, and then it's going to give you the 2. So that's all we need for this function. See how easy that was? So let's go ahead and prototype this by copying the header, copy, and then go ahead and just pasting it, adding a semicolon, and now that, oh, you guys didn't even see that, did you? Well, there it is, right there. And now all we have to do is call it. So once we populate it, let's just go ahead and spit Bucky 5. So now that we populated our array, all we have to do is spit it out. So let's go ahead and compile and run that. And come on, no whammy, no whammy. I got an error because I didn't have a semicolon. But bam, semicolon. Now look at it. Compile and run. Come on, no whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Big money, big money. Bam, that's what I'm talking about. Enter value for 1. 23, 54, 56, 6, and 7. And then it says the value of item 1 is 23, the value of item 2 is 54, on and on. And we could even simplify that even more by putting an end line right there. So now, once we do this one more time, promise this is the last time, unless I just type something wrong really quick. Let's put 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. Bam. Wow, that is a beautiful program. The value of item 1 is 4. As you can see, 1, 4, 2, 5. Don't need to read them all for you. You can probably read them yourself. But that is the basics of how to use a function. Let me see. Let me get it back. How you use a function to populate an array right here, and then how you use another function just to spit out all your answers after you populate it. And again, don't forget the prototype up here, and don't forget to call your functions, obviously. So that is your quick tutorial. The main thing I wanted to show you guys is how to populate an array. So all that other stuff was just a little bonus. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure, please, subscribe to my channel if you want to get all my latest videos. And once you did, you're ready to move on to the next video. So again, thank you guys, and I will see you next tutorial. What's up, guys? Welcome to the long-awaited and highly demanded 27th C++ tutorial. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to protect your display functions from changing your original array. So this is a problem that a lot of programmers have. Whenever they build a display function, then it somehow, one way or another, and I'll probably be teaching you about this later, it changes the value of the arrays when it's just supposed to show them. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to protect your functions from that. So let's first go ahead and make a function to populate an array, and I'll name it int populate, and it's going to take the parameters of an array, and I'm going to name it double and Bucky, and it's also going to take the parameters of the number of elements in the array. So I'm going to name my int limit. Make sure you spell it right. And now we can go ahead and begin building this function. The first thing we want to do is make a temporary variable that is going to store the value. You'll see what it does later. So name it temp or temporary, whatever you want. And now we need to go ahead and build a basic loop. So put for int I equals 0, and I is less than limit, as brought in by this limit right here. And then we just want to do I++ to iterate through the loop. And what do we want this loop to do? Well, for starters, let's just go ahead and give the user a prompt to enter. Say we're going to have them enter a dollar item for a bunch of different items. So cout, and let's just put something like enter dollars for item, and then say item I+1, and then let's go ahead and we'll add another semicolon, and that looks good. So what this is going to do is just put a prompt out. Say if the limit was 5, it's going to loop through this 5 times and says enter a dollar item for item number 1, for item number 2, for item number 3, 4, or 5. And why do you put +1 instead of just I? It's because the array starts at 0, so this way the prompt can start at 1 and go all the way to 0. So now what we have to do is go ahead and have them input that temporary variable, and that looks good, and then store it in the array where the array number is equal to that temporary variable. So now the array index, Bucky 0 is going to be the first thing they entered, Bucky 1 is going to be the second thing they entered, all the way depending on the size of your array. Now make sure I got it on my semicolons, and what we can do now is go on and build our second function right here. Now that we got a function to populate the array, we need a function to spit out pretty much the array just to display it to us. So I'm gonna name mine void spit, since void display, it's so boring. And here's how you do this. In order to protect the data from being changed, you need to give it a constant variable type. So instead of int or double, you need to put const, and this will keep your data constant. So now we can go ahead and put double Bucky just like before, and again we need another variable int n, and this is pretty much just going to be the limit or however many items are in your array. So let's go ahead and make a basic loop for, and we'll just put same as before, int I, set that equal to 0, and then go ahead and press I is less than n, and then we'll go ahead and do something like I++, just to iterate it through it one by one. And now we can go ahead and give this loop a body or some function. So now that we have an array already, we pretty much want to go through the array and output a price per item. So let's just make a simple output. No really thinking here. What you need to do is go ahead and press price for item, then press a space, and then put I+1, and then put something like, let's here we go, here's a good idea, colon dollar amount. Oh crap, I put a bunch of stickers on my keyboard so I can't tell what one is the dollar one, but I found it. And now after that, let's go ahead and just output cout Bucky with I, so it loops through the array, and let's just go ahead and end the line so it looks pretty. So right here what we did is we built a function to populate the array, and we also built a function to pretty much display the array. So let's go ahead and prototype these right now so we don't forget. So go ahead and remember, in order to prototype it, you have to copy that, and under your namespace std, just copy, make sure you don't cut, paste, semicolon, prototype, copy, and semicolon. Now let's go ahead and run this program to well, see if it works. Pretty much what we need to do is make an array, an empty array, so put something like double items and put like 5 elements in it. Doesn't matter how many elements, but 5 looks like a good number. Then store a variable that, well, you'll see what it does. Int size, and set it equal to populate. Since this was, or whatever you named your function right here, and again you need to pass it 2 things. So we're going to pass it the array first, which we named items, in the limit of the array, which is 5. So now add your semicolon for that, and now size is the return value of populate items, or size is this right here. Make sense? So next we need to go ahead and press just call our spit function to spit out the elements of our array. So let's go ahead and press spit and see what parameters it takes. Oh man, my dumb screen capture. So spit takes 2 parameters. It takes an array and it takes a number. So let's go ahead and spit items, since our array is items and our size is 5. So now go ahead and add our semicolon, and let me expand this just because it's bugging me. And now if we did everything right, we can go ahead and execute our array, and it should work out fine. I hope so. I got a feeling I got an error. Uh-oh, come on. No whammy, no whammy. Not bad. So enter dollar for item 1. 32, 45, 65, 76, and 2. And now it just pretty much spits out the array. So here's our first function right here, which adds the elements to the array. And here's our second function, spit, that just spits them out. It goes through a loop and spits it all out. And as you can see, these are the exact same: 32, 45, 32, 45, 65, 76, 2, 65, 76, 2. And that is how you can protect data in your array. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to be showing you guys what if you want to change that data in your array and you actually want to change the value of it. I'm going to be showing you guys a real quick function on how to do that. But for this tutorial, that's all I have, so hopefully you learned a little something, but not too much. So thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up guys, welcome to your 28th C++ tutorial. And in case you just popped in and felt like watching this tutorial and didn't watch my last one, in the last tutorial we built a program and I showed you guys how to protect data when you pass an array into a function. So we entered a dollar amount for each item using a function like 32, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we just made another function to spit it all out. And in this tutorial, what I'm going to show you how to do is, instead of protecting that data so it doesn't change, what if you want to build a function so that it does change? Well, let's do that right now. So we got a function called intPopulate, which created an array, and void spit, what spit out the array, or pretty much displayed it. Let's go ahead and build another function right now. And what this is going to do is change the value of the array. So we don't want it to return anything, so let's just put void revalue, make sure I spell that right, and it's going to take 3 parameters. The first one is the factor that you want to revalue it by. So double and put something like R for revalue. And now after this, go ahead and insert your array. So double Bucky as a second parameter, so the second parameter is going to take an array, and then put int n for just the limit of your array, or how many it has, so our loop knows how many times to go. So now we just need to build a basic for loop. So just write for int I equals 0, just like last time. I is less than n, and that's going to be how big our array is that we passed in. And then our last parameter is I plus plus, just so we can iterate through the loop. Now you can put your curly braces or not. I always like to have mine just cause I do. And now what we want to do is take that array, Bucky, not Ucky, Bucky I, and every time it gets an element in an array, it's going to take that value in, oh man, here we go, times equal to R. And what this is going to do is, whenever it gets, say the value is like 32, it's going to times it by R and say if R is 2, and then that is going to be equal to 64. So Bucky I times equals R is the exact same thing as Bucky I equals Bucky I times R. So now that we got this made, let's go ahead and prototype it. Go ahead and copy it right here, and then go ahead in your beginning and paste it to prototype it. And now we need to go ahead and call the function, or the function that we just built. So let's just go ahead and first make a prompt. So put cout, and then go ahead to like something enter factor to multiply by, did I actually spell that right? Wow, impressive. And then just put, that looks good right there. And make sure you end your line with a semicolon. And then we need, of course, what's it called, a variable. There we go. I had a mind blank for a second. And then give them an opportunity to enter that variable. So whatever number they enter is going to be stored in the variable factor. So now we need to pass that in their function that we just built. So we had a function called revalue, and it took 3 parameters, remember. The first one is factor. The second one is the what did we name it? The second one is the array, and we named ours items. And the third one is the size of the array, and I think, well, let's just pass in 5. There we go. Looks good. Let's see, spit. Yep, looks good. So now we have a factor, which is the whatever number we're going to enter, items, which is the array, and since it has 5 items in it, write 5. Now after that, what do we want to do after we change the array? Well, we need to spit it out again, or display it. So go ahead and put spit items 5. Put your semicolon, and then after this, let's just give them something like a nice little done, and end the line for good measure. So now let's go ahead and first see if it works, and then if it does, I'll walk you guys through it and show you guys why it did. If it doesn't, I'll show you guys where I messed up. Come on, here we go. Enter dollar for items 1. 32, I always start with 32, I don't know why. 45, 6, 76, and 21. And now this spits out the exact same array. Remember, this is the one where we didn't want to change the data, so we used a constant. And now the one where we do want to change the data, we don't use a constant. So go ahead and type a factor by 2 or something. Now it spits out the exact same array, but all of the numbers are times by 2. So instead of 32, 45, you got 64, 90, 12 is double 6, 152 is double 76, and 42 is double 21. So the point of these tutorials to show you is this. Anytime you want to keep an array the same, use constant. Anytime you want to change the value of it when you're building a function, you don't use that constant keyword. So again, if you want to just keep it the same, like when you're just displaying data, make sure you use constant, and when you're changing it, do not use constant or it isn't going to work. So again, what we did in this tutorial was we built a function that took 3 parameters. We went through the loop, or we went through the array and gave each array item a new value, and then up here we just said, alright, what do you want to multiply it by? Alright, that's what we're going to multiply it by, so that's the value we're going to pass in our function, and now we're just going to spit it out, and bam, you're done. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned how to protect data in an array, and also how to destroy data in an array. So that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you watch the next tutorial, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 28th or 29th or something C++ tutorial. I don't really know what one it is. And in this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to use a function to only use it on a specific range in the array. So, for example, I know that sounds confusing, but in the last couple of tutorials, we talked about using a function like to sum up all the elements in the array. But what if there are like 10 elements in your array, and you only wanted to sum up elements 2, 3, and 4? Or you only wanted to sum up the elements, the first one through the 5th one. Well, we don't really know how to work with array ranges yet, but in this tutorial, you'll know how to. So, the most common and most widely used approach to this is by passing 2 pointers into a function. One pointer points to the beginning of the array, and one pointer points to the end of the array, or the range that you want to use. So since I told you guys you need a function using 2 pointers, let's go ahead and build a function using 2 pointers. So I'm going to call my function sum, since that's what it's going to do. So go ahead and put int sum, and as your parameters write constant, and then go ahead and write int, since it's going to be integers we're talking about, pointer begin, and do this exact same thing, and this is going to be the beginning value, or where you want to start in your array. And then go ahead and write const again, int, since again we're going to be working with integers, pointer, and just go right ahead and write end or something like that. Now let's go ahead and build the body of it, because we're bodybuilders. Get it? That's what I thought. So go ahead and write const, and we need one last pointer. So go ahead and I'm going to name mine pointer, And now we need a variable to hold the sum of all these elements. We already made our function called sum, so I'm going to name mine total. So int total, and make sure you start out at 0, because, you know, why wouldn't you? And now let's go ahead and build the loop to loop through the elements in the array. So let's go ahead and make a for loop, and it's going to start, and just go ahead and press pointer equals begin, and then where do you want to end it? Pointer not equal to end, and then we just want to loop through one at a time. So pointer plus plus. So now we can go ahead and build the body for this, and you can add your colons if you want. I always do, just because I'm just addicted to them. So now we have that total variable, and what we want to do is each time it goes through the loop, we want to take the value of that pointer, which is just going to be the value of the elements. I'm just making it a pointer because, well, you're going to have to learn pointer sometime, so why not now? And it's just going to add it to that value of total. So if the first value is 2, it's going to add 2 to total. If the next one's 4, the total is now going to be 6. If the next one's 4, it's now going to be 10. Got it? Good. And now we need to return total, of course. We need to return our answer. We could name the answer, but, well, too late. Now we need to go ahead and prototype this function, so just copy it and put it at the top, paste. So now we have a function built that takes the beginning element of an array and the end one, and it adds up the sum, or sums the numbers. So here's what it pretty much does. The first one, or the pointer, points to the beginning item to be processed, and then once it loops through one time, it takes that value and adds it to the total. And then what this one does right here, this plus plus, it just increments through the loop, causing it to point to the next element until it finally gets to the end. And again, the beginning and the end are going to be declared whenever we call our function. So let's go ahead, and since we're working with an array, let's go ahead, and we probably need to make an array. I'm going to name my numbers, and I'm going to have like 8 elements in it. And let's go ahead and, well, add 8 elements into it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sure I got 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Not bad. So now that we have an array, we can begin using our function. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to make a variable. I'm going to name my value. This is actually the sum, but I can't name sum because that's what our function was called. So int value equals the sum, and now we need to pass it the beginning and ending locations of our array. So numbers, that'll start at the beginning, and numbers plus 8 will go one past the ending one. And you need to go one past the ending one so you know where to well, it's not really useful when you're doing the whole array, but you'll see why later. I'll make another one later, and you'll see why. So now let's just output it on the screen. The total, or let's put the sum of the numbers is, and let's just go ahead and press value and this end line. And now let me run this, execute, compile, and run, and you'll see how many errors we got. Check my semicolons real quick. Int main, and oh, forgot my semicolon right here. That is embarrassing. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you're prototyping your functions, always put a semicolon. Not like me. So now it says the sum of the numbers is 154. So that pretty much did what we did in our last couple of tutorials, but now I promise you that we do a range of numbers. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So let's go ahead and say, instead of the value of this entire thing, let's go ahead and put the first 2. So the first 2 is numbers, and numbers plus 2. And I'll show you why this is. If you're saying, well, let me go ahead and make sure it compiles right before I do. I don't think I could have messed anything up that fast, but it should be, yeah, there we go, 45. And let me show you guys why this works. The numbers is the first value, so it starts with 2, and this is index 0 of the array, and now it adds 2. So this is index 1, and this is index 2. But if you're saying, alright, why didn't I add this fourth one? This last one right here tells it where to end. So you never include this when you're adding up numbers. So for example, if we have numbers plus 1, it would start with 43, and if we had numbers plus 4, it would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but it wouldn't add that 6. So it would add 43 plus 4 plus 21, I think. Let's go ahead and compile and run that and see if it's right. So it should end. Wow, how the heck did I mess that up that fast? I don't even remember what I was teaching now. I mean, I can't even talk. That's so embarrassing. So anyways, it's going to add 43. Well, let's just go ahead and compile and run, so I'll figure it out. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not going to add the 6, so it should end in an 8 right there. So it adds 43 plus 4 plus 21. So this is 1 and this is 4 right here, but it doesn't include the 4. So there is my answer right there. I don't even know if I showed you guys the last answer, but well, there you go. So that's your quick tutorial on how to work with a range of an array. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my next tutorial. That doesn't even make sense. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys for watching.